According to a Harvard University study, 83% of people who start watching a behavioral economics video finish and share it with others. As a result, 67% of respondents said it had made a positive contribution to their lives. Let's start with an experiment. What do you think the dimensions of these two tables are? Just make a blind guess. Stop the video here and guess the ratio of length to width of each. You will probably say, as the vast majority do, that the table on the left is longer and narrower than the other. However, they are both the same size. If you are not convinced, you can take a ruler and measure the tables. Normally, the human brain works very well, but even Einstein would probably have been wrong about the way these tables look. Every day we make choices and decisions about everything from our personal investments to our children's schools, from the food we eat to the clothes we wear. Unfortunately, the vast majority of these decisions are bad ones. In some cases, the human brain does not behave rationally and leads us to make the wrong choices, as in the case of your thought or decision about the size of the tables. Hundreds of studies show that human predictions are inaccurate and biased. This is mainly because, as human beings, we succumb to various biases that cause us to make mistakes. Our mistakes make us poorer and less healthy. Knowing how we think is the key to making the best decisions for ourselves, our families, and our communities. Behavioral economics, which is the subject of this video, studies the psychology behind people's economic decisions and investigates why people sometimes make irrational decisions, why and how their behavior does not follow economic models. So, how do we become healthier, wealthier, and happier? Richard Thaler, who won the 2017 Nobel Prize in Economics for the theory in his book Nudge, brings psychology and economics together with his work in behavioral economics. He tries to find answers to these questions by enabling us to better understand how people make decisions. By the way, I highly recommend that you buy and read the book. In midsummer 1720, Isaac Newton predicted the collapse of the stock market and sold his South Seas shares at a profit of £7,000. Immediately afterwards, however, he saw the shares continue to rise and decided to buy them back at a higher price. When prices began to fall rapidly, Newton was left holding the shares. Panic soon set in, and the bubble burst. In the great stock market crash of August 1720, Newton lost exactly £20,000. After this great loss, he uttered his famous quote, "I can calculate the motions of the heavenly bodies, but not the madness of men." The emotion that led Newton to buy shares when prices were rising and to buy back the shares he had sold, despite predicting the crash, was the fear of losing his potential profits. His inertia during the panic caused him to lose most of his wealth. The toilets at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam cannot be rid of the intense and unpleasant smell, despite all cleaning efforts. Perfume-like fragrances, more frequent cleaning and warning signs are not enough to solve the problem. The reason for the intense smell in the toilets is the constant splashing from the urinals used by men. This splashing has created an unavoidable cleaning problem. To solve this problem, a small picture of a fly is placed inside the urinals. It is thought that men's instinctive aim will be useful. Results have been achieved in a short time. The airport's cleaning costs are reduced by up to 80%. Within 3 months, the bad smells have almost disappeared. At the moment, the toilets at Schiphol Airport still use urinals with a fly screen. The German pianist and composer Beethoven, one of the most famous and influential composers of all time, wrote his incredible Ninth Symphony while deaf, but we would not be surprised to hear that he was often looking for his house key. How can we be geniuses in some areas and ignorant in others? How can people be both very clever and very stupid? Human beings have two ways of thinking. One is through intuition and automatic understanding. The other is understanding through thought and logic. In short, the fast and uncontrolled is automatic thinking, and the slow and controlled is controlled thinking. Automatic thinking is fast and instinctive and is not usually associated with the word thinking. You duck when a ball is thrown at you when you least expect it. You worry when your plane hits turbulence, or you smile when you see a beautiful puppy. When you do these things, you have used your automatic system. We often make mistakes because we rely too much on the automatic system. Automatic thinking tells you, the plane is shaking, I am going to die. while controlled thinking says airplanes are very safe. To see how intuitive thinking, automatic system works, I am going to ask you 3 questions and ask you to answer them. As I will explain the answer after the question, please stop the video at the appropriate point and write down your own answer somewhere. Let's start when you're ready. First question. The price of a racket and a ball is $110. If the racket costs $100 more than the ball, how much does the ball cost? If your answer is $10, it is incorrect. Correct answer. The ball costs $5. The racket costs $105. The other question. If 5 machines produce 5 buttons in 5 minutes, how many minutes will it take 100 machines to produce 100 buttons? If your answer is 100 minutes or 2,000 minutes, you are wrong. The correct answer is 5 minutes. If we look at it, 1 machine produces 1 button in 5 minutes. If we add more machines next to this machine, the time will not change because the number of machines and buttons will increase in the same way. 2 machines will produce 2 buttons in 5 minutes. 30 machines will make 30 buttons in 5 minutes. Last question. The water lilies in a lake double every day and cover the surface of the lake. If the water lilies covered the whole lake in 48 days, in how many days did they cover half the lake? If your answer is 24, you are wrong. The correct answer is 47 days. The water lilies double every day. If they doubled on the 48th day and covered the whole lake, then they covered half the lake the day before they doubled on the 47th day. Don't get upset if you get the wrong answer. As Shane Frederick says, this test is not a substitute for a real IQ test. But this test gives very important information about people's decision-making and success. Answering the questions correctly requires patient thinking and not jumping to the first answer that comes to mind. People with this trait usually answer the questions correctly. These people tend to be more successful. They do not make instant decisions. They weigh a decision and calculate the risks. They take steps toward the future. They work with patience. But those who make instant decisions without thinking make more mistakes in life, have more what-ifs, make wrong decisions, and live more spontaneously. They cannot postpone their pleasures and desires, and that prevents success. Another problem that causes you to make irrational decisions and that you may not be aware of is anchoring. Anchoring is when you evaluate things that you do not know according to reference information that you do know or that has been imposed on you. In other words, you anchor to a point or number that you know and make some kind of adjustment accordingly. Anchors act as impulses. In a given situation, we can influence the number you choose by skillfully advising you on the starting point of your thought process. What do I mean by that? Typically, fundraising organizations will offer you £100, £250, £1,000 or other ready-made options. If the people fundraising for the organization know what they are doing, these numbers are not chosen at random. This is because the options influence how much people give. The higher the options, the more people will donate. It has been shown in many areas that, within reason, the more you ask for, the more you are likely to get. In America, lawyers who sue cigarette companies often get astronomical sums because they manage to persuade juries to settle for millions of dollars. Clever lawyers can get the other side to pay half of what they would like to pay. Thaler conducts research on nudging people to make decisions that improve their lives by making them richer, healthier, and freer. And in his book, he provides a discussion of how we can implement a choice architecture. He suggests how both individuals and states can create a choice architecture without restricting freedom of choice. To sum up, none of the options we are presented with are neutral. Today, from public policy to customer relations, someone is constantly nudging us and, if they can, influencing our decisions. Nudge, the name Thaler uses in his book, means to gently push or guide. The fact that it is light and gentle comes from the fact that options are presented and you make that choice with your free will. Bruce Lee gets a psychological nudge in an interview. The interviewer forces Bruce Lee to give a two-choice answer. But this is Bruce Lee. Look at his answer. He doesn't stick to the two choices given. He adds his own unique answer. We see how Bruce Lee skillfully overcomes these nudges. If we want to be self-controlled like Bruce Lee and avoid such nudges that exist in life, we need to be aware of these nudges. In this way, emotions will be better directed. But let us not forget, there can be good and bad nudges in our lives. Richard Thaler is said to have signed his book, Only Nudge for Good. The statement at the beginning of this video that 83% of people who start watching videos in this space watch them to the end was a nudge I created. If you've watched this far, there's a good chance you've been nudged, but you also had the option of not watching. I think you made the right choice. You were nudged for goodness.